Hi there, I'm Adam McDermott. Now, the Half-Life series is beloved by many gamers as well as being critically and commercially successful. I'm here to see if the first entry in the series holds up after all these years, as well as looking at all that happened after it came out. Let's begin.
Half-Life was developed by Valve and released on November 8th, 1998 for the PC. It tells the story of a theoretical physicist named Gordon Freeman whose secret underground lab, Black Mesa, accidentally opens up portals to another dimension and aliens known as Xen are now running amok. The goal is to get out in one piece while battling past the Xen and also avoiding the military, who are there to eliminate the aliens and silence the remaining scientists so that the rest of the world doesn't get wind of what happened.
Sorry, Mr. Freeman, I got explicit orders not to let you through without your hazard suit on.
The first thing that struck me while playing is how, despite Half-Life being graphically outdated, it is still immensely immersive. I got a great sense of what Black Mesa was like to work in while wandering around, learning the layout of the lab, picking up bits of information from characters about important and not so important matters.
Why do we all have to wear these ridiculous ties?
And like any workplace, there was always an opportunity for tomfoolery.
My God,
stop
what are
that.
you doing?
Come on, Gordon. You trying to get me into trouble?
Due to the way the world reacted to my presence and the first person view as a silent protagonist, I felt comfortable in my surroundings, like I was part of it. I even had my own locker complete with some blocky looking things. My blocky looking things.
Excuse me, Gordon, but I'm rather busy now.
An aspect of Half-Life that is worth touching on is the speed at which Gordon moves. Darting around levels, zipping in and out of cover while dodging gunfire is exhilarating. Hardly any first-person shooter controls like this nowadays. Throughout the years, games have slowed down to focus on narrative or big set pieces, which is understandable. But playing Half-Life makes me wonder what it would be like to run at this speed in BioShock or Borderlands. In Half-Life, instead of having a sprint command, there is one for walk, which allows for more control during the platforming sections, but for the majority of the time you'll be whizzing around at what initially feels like breakneck speeds until you get used to it and don't ever want to go back to trudging through another pre-scripted, overblown cinematic set piece.
Hey, Mr. Freeman.
Something that I enjoyed while playing is the ebb and flow of the gameplay. For every feverish moment spent blasting aliens, there was also a quiet moment searching rooms for supplies, platforming or chatting with troubled co-workers.
Everyone's heading for the surface, but I think they're crazy not to stay put. Someone is bound to come by and rescue us.
More time is actually spent adventuring than shooting, which means the game never devolves into a run-of-the-mill shooting gallery. Every encounter is different from the last, be it fighting a room full of headcrabs, riding the rails while avoiding hound eyes, or playing cat and mouse with the military. At no point does the gameplay get monotonous due to the variations on how you engage enemies, and plenty of downtime makes those engagements all the more satisfying.
Gordon, man am I glad to see you. What the hell are these things?
The last thing I want to talk about is the way the story is presented. As there are no cutscenes, and only a handful of instances where you're not able to advance until a character finishes talking, you can take in as much or as little of the overall story as you want. It is possible to play through the majority of the game and not even know about G-Man, or the nature of what everyone was experimenting on. The subtle hints about who Gordon is working for, the humorous interactions with co-workers, bits of exposition that some characters will mention, all of this can be ignored if you want. If the only thing that matters is racing through Black Mesa as fast as possible, smashing headcrabs with crowbars, and shooting militants just because they are shooting in your direction and you have no urge to know why, then that is how you can play the game. Shoot whatever moves, ask questions, never. If you want to take your time, explore all the nooks and crannies, and take in every drop of story you can find, then that can also be done. Most will find a happy medium, but allowing the player to choose how much of the game's story they want to participate in my opinion, is brilliant. For example, at the start of the chapter On a Rail, a security officer is there waiting to let you know a bit about what is going on and where you are going next. After he is done talking, he will raise the barrier for you. If you are not in the mood to listen, you can just pull the lever yourself and be on your merry way. This unobtrusive approach to storytelling makes me feel like I am always in control, as I'm never forced to stop and listen unless I want to.
Ah, Gordon, here you are.
So after all these years, Half-Life still holds up remarkably well. While the textures and character models are far outdated, and the platforming can be a little odd at times, the total immersion, varied gameplay and exquisite approach to storytelling more than makes up for it.
Gordon, we have complete confidence in you.
So what happened after Half-Life was released? Well, it was a huge hit. Critics gave it more than 50 Game of the Year awards. The public took notice and it went on to sell over 10 million retail copies in the next 10 years. 2 expansions were made called Opposing Force, where players get to play as the military who come in to kill aliens and silent scientists, and Blue Shift, where players assume the role of the lovable Barney, one of Gordon's friends, during the same time that the experiment goes wrong in Black Mesa. Both were well received and welcome additions to the series. Half-Life was also ported to the PS2 with its own expansion called Decay, which featured cooperative play. I played Half-Life on the PS2 and I highly recommend you steer clear. It feels off and doesn't run that well. Not a bad port, just not a good one. And Decay isn't much to write home about either.
I'm afraid we'll be deviating a bit from standard analysis procedures today, Gordon.
I mentioned the speed at which Gordon moves in my review, and something that is a sight to behold are the speed runs of Half-Life. Watching people blaze through a game that took me 12 hours to beat in just 20 minutes is breathtaking. Some have devoted years of their life to their craft and still do to this day. I'll put a link in the description to the world record, well worth a watch. One of the great things that happened after Half-Life came out was the amount of mods that were made for it. This is due to Valve encouraging independent developers by including a level design tool with the game, and in 2002, Valve released a software development kit free of charge. This led to the creation of a wide variety of mods including Counter-Strike and Team Fortress. 16 years later, people are still creating mods for Half-Life. As recent as the 10th of October, a new mod was released. I doubt even Valve thought that modding would continue for this long.
My God, what are you doing?
Perhaps what Half-Life will be remembered for most of all is that it was the start. The start of a game series spanning decades that has picked up hundreds of awards and sold tens of millions of copies. And the start of Valve being one of the most respected and innovative developers around. It is truly an important part of the history of gaming. Thank you very much for watching my video. I had a lot of fun putting it together. Revisiting Half-Life after all these years was quite enjoyable. It got me itching to play other entries in the series. Ah, that would be epic. Playing Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2 all in a row. Oh, I do have the day off. Fuck it, where's my headset? See you next week, I'm off to play Half-Life.